Hello, scholars. Welcome to our next unit. We are now going to be studying colonial America, starting, of course, with the Jamestown colony. After we yesterday had a quick book on an attempt to colonize, but we'll get back to that again in a moment. As you're looking at this title, I want you to think about this. Why would people leave their homes and families to risk an ocean journey of more than 3,000 miles? Why would they give up the comforts of a settled life for the unknown dangers of a new land? Well, England in the late 1500s was not a pleasant place for many people. Many people were out of work. Many of them had lost their homes. Some saw a chance for a better life in the new world of America. They hoped to ship furs, fish, and timber back to England to make their fortune. Others believed that they would find gold and silver in America, and still others wanted to farm there. This is their story. So today, we will learn about the beginnings of the Jamestown colony, and we will learn about reasons the spot chosen for the settlement was not such a great spot. Now, Virginia's story actually begins with a disaster from another colony. Let's see what you remember. Question 1. What was the first English colony named? You hopefully listened to the reading of it yesterday. Did you say Roanoke? That would be correct. Question number 2. What happened to the Roanoke colonists that scared people back in England? Hmm. Oh, I remember. The colonists disappeared. No one knows what happened to them still to this day. So that got people in England quite worried that this group of colonists from Roanoke completely disappeared and no one knew what had happened. While the fate of the lost colony, as Roanoke was called, is still a mystery today, that disaster did stop the English from returning to Virginia uh, for a little while. But the lure of riches such as gold and silver and what was said to be excellent farmland beat out any fear that people had been feeling after what had happened to the colonists who were in Roanoke. So, in 1606, a group of London businessmen decided they could get rich in North America. They formed a company and got a charter, which is like a permit, to start a colony in Virginia. This charter stated the rights, duties, and goals of the company. Since the king thought this would benefit England, he granted them the charter. So, three ships, the Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, left London heading to Virginia in December of 1606. The ships carried about 100 colonists and all the things they needed to survive in the New World and get started in their lives. All 100 were men. Some of them were farmers, some were servants, and a few were skilled craftsmen, but many of them were what was called English gentlemen. And at that time in England, English gentlemen did not do any physical work of any sort. And these English gentlemen, along on this trip, were expecting they would not have to do any work in Virginia either. So it seems that the people who were sent to the new land had no skills or desire to work. They were not planning to clear forests and plant crops. They believed their only work would be bending over to pick up all the gold and silver on the ground. Most of them were going to Virginia to strike it rich. Crossing the Atlantic Ocean had left most of them seasick and weak, however, and they were really starting to wonder if they had made the wrong choice in wanting to go to the New World. But after being at sea for over 4 months, they finally saw the coast of Virginia on April 26th, 1607. The settlers again were reminded that this seemed like a land of great opportunity. For the next few weeks, the colonists explored the coast. They sailed up a river that they named the James River. And then on May 14th of 1607, they chose a place for their settlement. They named it Jamestown. Little fun fact. Maybe you thought about this and already know. Both the river and the settlement were named in honor of England's King James I, who granted them the charter to be there. Now, it is important to note that the place they chose already had some people living nearby. Living in the area was a Native American tribe named the Powhatan people. They were known for their skills in farming, fishing, and hunting, and the Powhatan men were also known to be warriors, and that they made practice of going to war to show their courage. The chief of the Powhatan people was called Powhatan as well. This powerful chief led about 9,000 people in the tribe, spread out into about 30 different villages in the overall tribe. The relationship between the Powhatan people and the Jamestown colonists was uneasy from the very start. To the Powhatan people, the colonists were invaders who moved into the area and took over. The English thought they were bringing a more civilized way of life to the Powhatan people because they thought the English way of life was the best way. This was certainly going to create problems. Yet the colonists of Jamestown needed the Powhatan people for help. The colonists traded with the tribe to get food since they were running very low on it themselves. The Powhatan were happy to make this trade at first because they were getting metal, tools, and guns out of the deal, things they did not know how to make for themselves. The trouble with this, however, was that the Powhatan grew only enough food to last their tribe into the spring of the next year, and all that trading with the colonists was actually causing them to have less food as well. And if they weren't careful and traded too much food, they could cause themselves to starve as well. And here, scholars, is a painting of one Powhatan village. Remember, there were about 30 of these villages that made up the entire tribe. Soon, other problems developed as well. The place the colonists chose for their settlement proved to be a mistake. They had chosen land that stuck out into the river, thinking it made good sense because it meant the deep water allowed the colonists to tie their ships close to land. But this made the soil marshy. The land was very marshy and poor. That kind of land does not make for good farmland, and the few crops they were able to plant were not ripening very well, which was causing even more of a food shortage. Another problem, water backed up from the ocean into the James River. So the salt water of the ocean was mixing into the drinking water of the river. This caused many colonists to become ill from drinking the bad water. The third problem relates back to that marshy land. Mosquitoes thrive on marshy land, and mosquitoes spread illnesses such as malaria, which killed many of the settlers. And lastly, because of the Powhatan people living in the area, the colonists felt they were unable to safely hunt or fish because they were worried it was unsafe with the Powhatan tribe right nearby. It seems life in Jamestown was not getting off to a very good start. Food was running low, people were dying of malaria. These early months were very hard. Things were not looking good. And scholars, that is where we're going to stop for today. So let's check on those objectives. So today we learned about the beginnings of the Jamestown colony, how a group of businessmen got a charter permission from King James I to start the colony, and the reason people were coming over, right, thinking they were going to strike it rich with silver and gold, thinking they could farm, perhaps send furs, fish, and timber, or just lumber, wood from trees, back over to England, making a fortune. And we learned the reasons that the spot they chose did not end up being a very good spot, right? The marshy land and poor soil, the drinking water had salt water mixed in it. There was illness like malaria from the mosquitoes, and the Powhatan people living nearby had them a little on edge and a little afraid to go out and hunt and fish. Lastly, scholars, the assignment. Remember to open the attached Google form and answer the questions about today's lesson. Remember, you can go back and listen to any of this information again or look over those slides. Click the submit button at the bottom of the Google form. Good luck, scholars, and I'll be with you next time as we continue more on the Jamestown colony.